Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, I'm going to tell you something that's hardly going to come as a surprise. Let's face it, you won't be astonished. Humza Yousaf doesn't have a clue. I know, it's not a stunning revelation. It's not breaking news, is it? But what is unusual is that he's admitting he is completely out of his depth, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and that he has to quote people because they sound more intelligent than him. Now that is truly startling because he doesn't normally admit to being a complete and utter moron, even though we all know, of course, that he is. But of course he's not admitting it to us, far be that from being true. But he did admit it to the person from whom he is stealing all the best lines. No, not the devil, not this time. But in fact Jason Leach, who himself is a bit of a liar, calls himself a professor when he of course is no such thing. Pretends he's an expert on epidemiology when he's just a dentist. So it's not just Humza, I think, that hasn't got a clue. I think Leach also is equally bereft of any kind of idea of what's going on. But he has admitted it, and we can now all see it. So let's take a look. Here goes. So Humza Yousaf admits in WhatsApp messages to not knowing what was going on or what he was doing during the pandemic. Like I say, nobody is surprised that he didn't have a clue, really, do we? The shocking message he sent to Professor Jason Leach also admits he just copied the doctor's messaging during COVID crisis because he pretends that he become an expert. Look at me, I'm in charge of health now. I've been promoted to health because the last one had to go because she was so goddamn awful. And people were saying that Freeman was the worst health minister ever. And then Humza comes in and says, wow, let me make Freeman look like she knew what she was doing, because he's even worse, because he is a spectacularly stupid man. And a man who's also filled with his own self-importance to the point that he thinks that he can convince us that he is wise and all-knowing. But we see through him. The guy is a complete moron. Humza Yousaf admitted to a top pandemic advisor. I'm not having that. He may have been a pandemic advisor, but he's not a top one, is he? Because he knows bugger all about pandemics. He knows great about yanking a teeth out. I mean, let's face it, medical science in dentistry hasn't come far, has it? 100 years ago, it was pulling teeth out with pliers. Today, it's much the same. Anyway, he copied this guy's quotes word for word so that it looked like he knew what he was actually talking about. Because, of course, he doesn't. He hasn't got a clue. But what's funny is, neither does Jason Leach. So Humza Yousaf is sitting there saying, oh, I know call about anything, so I'll listen to the expert Jason Leach and say what he says about the pandemic. Jason Leach is a dentist. He knows nothing about the pandemic. Only what he's told by the real experts, like Woolhouse. And Woolhouse, of course, was the one saying, don't do this, whatever you do, don't do this. But, of course, what Woolhouse was saying was going against what the SNP wanted to do. And so Woolhouse was demarked and marked down and whatever. And then Jason Leach was inventing it as he went along. And then he was putting a bit of gloss, a bit of technical terminology on it to make it all look like, medical jiggery-pokery. And then Humza Yousaf comes along and quotes what Leach was saying, but what Leach was saying was rubbish. Details of the First Minister's message to National Clinical Director were revealed last week at the UK COVID inquiry. This was just days after it emerged. He confessed to winging it in his key post at the peak of the global health crisis. And he's still winging it. He's still winging it as leader. The man hasn't got a Scooby-Doo. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's talking about. You ask him a technical question and you see the eyes glaze over. If he's not been prepped for it, he literally doesn't have a clue. It's very hard for him because he is incredibly, as I say, uneducated in any field. Now, you could ask me about the intricacies of the human brain. Of course I wouldn't know. I'm not educated in it. But there's basic things that you think people should know, and he doesn't even know that. In a seemingly light-hearted exchange, Mr. Yousaf told Professor Leach, no, Leach, not professor, that he would try to copy his words during public appearances. The message showed the medical expert asking the SNP minister, who'd just been handed the health brief, if he needed to sign off on medical requests, or media requests known as bids. At the time, Leach, stopped calling him Professor, Leach regularly appeared at Nicola Sturgeon's TV COVID briefings, although nobody knows why, and on weekly BBC radio shows like Off the Ball. How off the ball, off your head, half your head, as my Scottish friends say. I apologise for the accent. But anyway, he texted Mr. Yousaf saying, I'm going to presume you don't need to see every one of my bids for permission. We kind of just do it, and there are often loads. Clearly you need profile and do all the politics. Yousaf replied, not for permission, no, but helpful to know what bids you're doing so I can catch up, as I often plagiarise what you are saying verbatim, just to make it look like I know what I'm actually talking about. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. His admission. Humza Yousaf saying he hasn't got a clue what he's talking about. And yet he's up there pontificating and telling people, do this, as the health minister at the time, do this, do, all these things, pretending like he knows. And he's admitting he knows the square root of bugger all. The thing is, in the sort of 2 years since then, he's learned nothing. He still doesn't know anything, does he? He still hasn't got a clue. And it is tragic and funny at the same time. It is both sides. Because it's tragic for the people of Scotland. It's tragic for what he's doing to the country. But it's funny watching him try. It's like a comedy of errors with this party. Everything they try to do fails. If you wrote a script and took it to a producer and said, look, we'd like to do this, they'd say, it's unbelievable. Nobody can fail that much. Exhibit A, the SNP. Anyway, Scott's Tory chairman Craig Hoy said Mr. Yousaf's admission came as little surprise. Well, little surprise to anyone, really, is it? He said the MSP added, this may be amusing to Humza Yousaf and colleagues, but for thousands of Scots who lost loved ones during the pandemic, this was no laughing matter. Maybe if Humza Yousaf had spent more time focused on his job rather than playing political games during a pandemic, he'd have a far better grip of his brief. The only briefs he was gripping were Anam Kazir's by all rumour, apparently, allegedly. Scottish Lib Dems leader Alex Cole-Hamilton added that the chat proved the First Minister was flying by the seat of his pants, or the seat of somebody's pants, that's for sure, and that NHS staff look to the Health Secretary for leadership. You don't look at him for leadership. My God, you're better off going out into the street and finding some bloke walking past. He'll know more. Chances are he's better educated. He said, at a time of national crisis, they can tell when someone is making it up as they go along. Well, yes, and he still is. We only have an example at Convent. My rubbish speech, blah, blah, blah. Oh, no one's laughing, no one's clapping. Council tax freeze, bing. Hey, and all the performance seals are like that. And he goes, yay, that's a surefire winner, as he walks off stage and sees everybody going, what the hell? Man's a lunatic, though, isn't he? A Scottish Government spokesman said, as noted in its closing statements, blah, 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 we don't listen to them because we know it's all full of crap, because we show time and time again that the Scottish Government lie and spin and cover up the truth. And so there you are. On the left, a man who is without any kind of educational clue, doesn't know what he's doing, doesn't know what he's saying, doesn't know nothing about nothing. And on the right is a man who's a dentist pretending to be an epidemiologist and who calls himself a professor when he's no such thing. Is it any wonder? Is it any wonder all those people died needlessly? Coming up. Come on then, all of you, tell me if you're surprised. Is anyone surprised? Is anyone astonished that Humza Yousaf knows bugger all and had to rely on someone who also knows bugger all about epidemiology? You couldn't make it up, could you? You couldn't. It is absolutely the worst thing. And yet they try to pass themselves off as being the best for Scotland. And they refuse to listen to real experts and instead listen to people who know nothing. It's sad if it wasn't for the thousands of deaths that never should have happened. And it's about now, of course, that the evidence is there that he can possibly be sued for taking advice like that, for not knowing what he's doing, for not being on top of his brief, and for not taking expert advice, and instead taking advice from a man who pretends he's a professor. Anyway, I'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video, and I will speak to you later. Bye.